2022 meeting. Notice of this meeting has been advertised in the Grand Island Independent, which is the district's designated method of giving notice of these meetings. We want those in attendance to know that copies of the Open Meetings Act are available at the entrance of the board room. If anyone in attendance is interested in addressing our board, you are welcome to do so. We simply request that you complete the appropriate form and turn it in to us so that you may be recognized during the request to address the board part of our meeting. If you've not already completed the form, please see the staff person outside the entrance to this room. Public comment is welcome. We do ask that no signs be brought into the boardroom. Dr. Dexter, would you please call roll?
Mrs. Albersh.
Present.
Mr. Barshanis.
Yes.
Dr. Brose. Mr. Brown. Mr. Hawley.
Here.
Mrs. Hinkle.
Present.
Mr. Holinsky.
Here.
Mrs. Juergens.
Present.
Ms. Wolf.
Present.
Thank you.
Now I have the mission statement. Mr. Holinsky, will you please read the mission statement?
Every student, every day is success. In educating students, we teach hearts as well as minds. Within the school district of Grand Island, every student has access to high-quality, culturally responsive, and engaging learning environments. Every student will develop literacy skills across disciplines. Every student is socially and emotionally equipped to thrive in school and in life. And every student will graduate as a college, career, and community-ready citizen.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda tonight is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is to be approved. The consent agenda to be approved is as follows. 4.1, meetings from the previous month's meeting, acceptance of agendas from standing committees, claims, 4.3, claims as submitted, 4.4, bid proposals as submitted, 4.5, staff adjustments as submitted, 4.6, treasurer's report as submitted, 4.7, approval of agenda as submitted. This is the consent agenda as published. Would anyone like to remove any items or add any items to the consent agenda? Does anyone have a potential conflict of interest on agenda item 4.3? If so, please state the check number that you will be abstaining from voting on.
I'll abstain from voting on check number 81896 and approve the rest.
Ms. Wolf?
I will be abstaining from check number 81896 and approve the rest.
Mr. Holinsky?
I will be abstaining from check number 32055 and approve the rest.
Thank you. May I have a motion, please? Oh, sorry, Lynn.
I'll be abstaining from check number 81896 and approving the rest.
Okay, now a motion.
Make a motion to amend the consent agenda by adding an additional addendum to the staffing adjustments to reflect the resignations of Melissa Berbernes, McHale.
Yes.
Thank you. Hap, John Hauser, Maureen Oman, and Melody Peebly, and approve the consent agenda as presented.
Mr. Barshanis and Mr. Brown, any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes. Next on the agenda, we have campus highlights. 5.1, Conical campus highlights, bringing community back after COVID. Mrs. Bentley?
Good evening. I am so excited to be here. This is the first time I've got to even introduce myself. So I am Opal Bentley, the new principal at Conical. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Welcome. We're glad to have you here.
Okay, let's make sure we got it going. All right, here we go. So this year at Conical, our theme was the year of possibilities. And with me stepping into a new role and learning a new campus and coming to Grand Island, it was really just that year of possibilities. We wanted to get to know each other, build culture in our community, and just come together as a Conicarum family. So that was really our focus this year. And, with COVID, the restrictions lifting, we just wanted to bring our community back. So one of my goals, my personal goals, was to strengthen our school culture, bring our families back into the building, have them feel welcome, have them, feel a part of the Conicarum community. So we did that a lot of different ways. So I'm just going to share tonight lots of fun pictures and just tell you about all of the fun things that we did this year to build our community. We started off with Meet the Teacher and Open House and just welcomed our families in. Our wonderful community partner from Cornerstone Bank provided hot dogs, and we just had a good time welcoming everybody back. I got to introduce myself to quite a few parents. They just got to know me, where I came from. I grew up in Cozad, but have lived in Colorado for a long time, but we're coming home, to be with family. So they got to know me as a person, which I think was really important. We also really wanted to focus on our students. And Conicarum has a history of having our house teams. And over the past couple years with COVID, they have not been able to meet. And this year we brought back our house teams. So there were 7 times during the year where the students, K through 5, are all divided and they have a house. And we got to get together, they got to do fun activities, they got to do some social emotional learning together. During Veterans Day, they got to make packages for soldiers that were sent off to soldiers overseas with letters and treats and all of those things. So we have really had a lot of fun with house teams. This Thursday, we'll find out who wins the House Cup. Students earn points for showing great behavior, being safe, responsible, and respectful. So they cannot wait to see who wins the House Cup next Thursday. But we've also had a lot of other good things. The picture up in the top is our positive referrals. So, kiddos get to come up and I get to call the parents for a good reason, and say, oh, I have your student in the office, and there's always that pause of, oh, and then I get to say, oh, but they had a positive office referral, and just build that relationship that way. We also did our holiday sing-along. On February 2nd, it was 2-2-2-2 day, and so we did ties and tutus that day. Reading Across America Week, kids earned reading with flashlights, and our 5th graders presented stories to the younger classrooms. And then during that week, they had to earn points, and if they earned enough points for being caught reading during their downtimes instead of choosing to do something else, I turned into a human piñata on Friday. So that was a great time. The kids were so excited, and of course they met their goal and even more. The other things that we have done is our staff team building. With, again, me being new, and Conicarum has a very veteran staff. They have been there for a very long time and have those relationships built. So we did a lot of things to just continue that. From team building games to even at the beginning of the year, our Year of Possibilities theme, we all did an art project together, and, just a fun little Christmas celebration, and just a lot of fun things throughout the year. Another thing that we did to bring our parents in is we had a couple of parent nights. One was our movie night, and the other one was our family dance. And both of those events were just packed. We had so much fun. And again, just building that community, having a good time together. Our last one that we brought families in was Field Day, and I was shocked. We had it last week, and we had so many parents come. This was our biggest event, definitely, of the year. And thank goodness it stopped raining long enough to dry up the puddles. So we had a great time on Field Day. And here's a couple of examples of times that we brought our community in. We had our firefighters come. We had a gentleman come and do some exercise with the kids. Down at the bottom, we have staff members who were veterans, and so we did a Veterans Day celebration. And then, of course, our concerts. So that was wonderful, too. you know, all of these events really have started to show a difference. We have our Panorama data that has come back for the spring, and we actually saw a 10-point increase in staff culture, which was amazing. We did see a couple of points decrease, though, in students. So as we're looking into next year, we're really going to focus more on building the student events as well and building that culture. So we're going to hopefully have a STEM night, and we're even looking at an art night to go with our family dance. But we want to ensure that we're continuing our traditions that Conical has, because like I said, our staff has been there and families have been there for a long time. It's so great when parents walk in and say, I came to Conical, that was my classroom. So, you know, we want to make sure that we're continuing with those traditions, but we're going to focus a lot more on student celebrations next year. Our theme next year is Ride the Learning Wave, which we are super excited about. And we are going to have a Student of the Month. We're also going to start looking back at perfect attendance and also have students set their own academic goals. And our community partner has agreed to buy us a lot of fun leis. And so once a month, we're going to go around to each classroom and we'll award the students who was Student of the Month, who had perfect attendance, who had any academic goals that they met. So we're really looking forward into next year too. So thank you.
Thank you so much. That was a great presentation. Does anybody have any questions? Mrs. Hinkle? Oh. Isabella?
Not a question, but I went to Conical and I do remember the movie nights and just those are my favorite, and just having that community aspect is very important, and I'm always a cougar.
Yay!
I was just going to ask, what are the house names? Can you share those with us?
So we do colors. They do have other names too, but we do the colors. So it is the colors of the rainbow. So we
Got
have
it.
our red and blue and green. Yeah.
All right, thank you. And it sounds like you have a great community partner. I'm very happy to hear that, because I know we had a lot of questions from that when we had the community event last week. A lot of people didn't think that happened anymore, so I'm glad to see it's still going on.
Yes, absolutely. He has helped a lot.
Ms. Wolf?
As a former Conical cougar as well, I would just like to say I've always appreciated the community in regards to what Conical has with their parents and their families. So appreciate that, and I think that's very neat how you're continuing traditions but also mixing in some new things as well. So appreciate that.
Thank you very much for presenting.
Thank you very much. It was nice to see you all in person.
.2 on the agenda, Jefferson Campus Highlights. Mrs. Stockwell and Mrs. Harder.
We good? All right, I'm Cherie Stockwell. I'm the principal at Jefferson, and I have with me tonight Angela Harder, who's our academic support coach. And we purposely chose May because at the beginning of the year this year, our reading scores, especially in our primary grades, were very low. And so we knew we needed to get them up, and so we purposely chose May so we could tell you all the great progress that we made, and we actually have some really good results to share with you tonight. So we're excited to give you this data, and I promise, well, we talked about, we could either talk for 3 hours or 5 minutes, so we're gonna give you the 5-minute version. But mostly we are measuring our reading with our DIBELS growth and achievement scores. And so at the beginning of the year, you can see is the light blue. Our kindergartners, we had 4% of them were at or above proficiency. First grade was at 18%, second grade was at 42%, and third grade was at 43%. So then throughout the year, we implemented Tier 1 instruction with Fidelity, and we also implemented some interventions, and we'll talk more about those. But you'll see the gains that we made in kindergarten are phenomenal. That is above the national norm that we figured out today. So we made some great gains in all those grades, and we'll just continue on, and we'll tell you what we did to get there, and then what we're hoping to do for next year. So I'll let you talk about the decrease of.
So looking at the at or above proficient is one thing, but we're also very proud that we decreased significantly the number of students who we say are in the red or well below. And so gap closing growth is what we're looking for. So to say that 61% of our kindergarteners, we decreased 61% of students that were but well below benchmark. And then 23% of first graders, 13% of second graders, and 13% of third graders.
And then on our IRIPs, we have kids that are on the individual reading or individualized reading improvement plans. And last year we were able to get 35% of our kiddos out of IRIPs or off IRIPs, and this year we were able to get 49% of those kiddos off IRIPs. So we'll break down mostly we focused on kindergarten and first grade because those are the areas we knew we needed the most improvement, and so we also know that that has long-term gains for us, so we knew that we needed to get very solid. So we'll explain the breakdown of our scores for kindergarten and first grade.
So at the beginning of the year, 32 of our students were in the red or well below. 7 students were below benchmark. We had 1 student who was at and 2 that were above. So then looking at the first row is exactly what we just talked about at the beginning of the year. The bottom row shows the growth that the kids made. So of the 32 students that we had well below grade level, we moved 84% of those students to the next color band or above. So it's really exciting to see a student who started in the red or well below, and 25% of those students ended at above. And that was so exciting to watch that come in as we were testing students. Very exciting that out of the 7 students who were in the yellow, we moved 86% of them to at grade level. Our student who was at benchmark stayed there, which is very exciting. And our 2 students who were above, one of them stayed above, and one of them just dropped the tiniest little bit into the at category.
And then first grade.
Same thing for first grade. We had 30 students who were below, 9 who were well below, 9 who were below, 5 at benchmark, and 3 above benchmark. And then looking here, we moved 47% out of the well below into the next color bands. Our biggest growth was in the students who were below, and we moved 77 or 78% into the at or above. Of our 5 students who were in the at benchmark, they either stayed or they went up. We didn't have anyone drop, and the same with our above benchmark, and that is a difficult thing for kids to do, is to stay there.
So if you look at our kindergarten scores, we looked there to see, like, that had the most growth. So what did we do there to get that, and then how does that change things for next year? So here's what we did in kindergarten that we knew. In all the grades, we focused on our instructional routines, in CKLA especially, and we did monthly fidelity checks in every grade, and then we used that information to help us in our PLCs and with our planning. And then specifically in kindergarten, we noticed some pieces that were missing on interventions, and I'll let Angela talk about that.
So we were really watching the progress monitoring as it was coming in, and noticed in December that our students who were receiving EL pullout services were not receiving the additional instruction that they also needed in reading and in math because the time just wasn't there. So in January, we decided instead of doing 40 minutes or 50 minutes of EL pullout, we would do 4 20-minute rotations for kindergarten students, and we would focus on every student in kindergarten receiving reading, enrichment or additional instruction, mathematics, speaking and listening, and center time.
And those interventions, we noted that for reading and math, we used our title funds to buy some more interventions, and that helped. And also on the teaching of the interventions, we used the data from our teachers, their student growth, to see who is teaching better in reading or who would teach better in math. And so we made it specifically so that those teachers were teaching what they were strong in. And then for the CKLA skills for our ELs, 35 out of the 45 kiddos in kindergarten, so 78% of them, are in EL. So when we looked at our mid-year data, we noticed that they weren't making as many gains as we were hoping. And so what we did there, For our emerging ELs, we usually had them together all in one room, and basically they were in a similar groupings, and so we decided to go ahead and do mixed groupings, which is another strategy for instruction that you can use, and so we tried that to put them more with gen ed peers. And once we did the mixed groupings, we realized that they made a lot more growth in that setting than they did together with like levels. So we decided to go with the heterogeneous mixing for next year instead of the homogeneous. So then for next year, we'll continue with that mixing of the heterogeneous in kindergarten and in first grade. And then we'll continue with the WIN rotations in kindergarten. First grade, it's a consideration right now. What we have to look at is our master schedule and our staffing, and also what we have available for time, and make sure, like, it just is a master scheduling. So we're trying to figure it out and also get the teachers lined up and ready for it. But that is a strong consideration. We're doing everything we can to make that happen. We'll continue with our interventions, and that will happen in every grade, K through 5. Those will continue to be focused on for all of them. And then also our title funds have helped us with some more intervention pieces. We'll continue with our instructional routines, our tier 1 instruction, and we'll continue with the fidelity checks and the planning and PLC. And then I'll let Angela talk about the decodable readers.
Mm-hmm. We started this year with purchasing some decodable readers to have in the classrooms, and there are more and more becoming available. Rather than having readers that are written at a level, the decodable readers will allow students to be able to read and decode every word in the book and practice the skills that they're working on in the classroom. And I'm excited that I just had a second proposal accepted this week to get even more books all the way up into our 4th grade classrooms for decodable readers.
So to end, we'd like to thank you guys for your support. We had the Literacy Systems of Support Specialist at our school this year. That was Cassie Blaze. She helped a lot. We were able to take a bird's eye view of our data and of our classes and strategize a lot more with her. So I thank you for approving that position and letting her be a part of our team. Also, the interventionist position, we didn't have that position this year, but we know we're getting one for next year, and we're very excited because we see a need for that. So thank you for that. I also want to thank you for a coach, because early literacy is not my strength. I have other strengths, but early literacy is not one of them. So the team has really helped me understand how to implement the strategies and the instructions. They really helped me understand it more. So thank you for a coach who understands it upside down and inside out. She's amazing. So thank you for that. And then also because you approved the CKLA resources, that has also been a tremendous help. So thank you guys for your support. Do you have questions?
Thank you, both of you. Any questions? Mrs. Hinkle.
Just make a comment. That's very amazing, the strides that you made, and it's going to be interesting to see, now that they have such a solid foundation, how it carries through with them the rest of their school years. So it's very exciting, and really appreciate hearing about that. I know that's some comments we got too, was about the reading program, because I know it is intense, but it sounds like it's working, and I think that's the most important thing that we have to look at. Thank you.
Mr. Barsness.
Yeah, no, thank you. I remember when we did the pilot, one of my little ones was in kindergarten. The second one I got to do the pilot, and I just seen with his friends and what I hear, just the ability of reading. You know, at home we're like, come on, you've got to read, and struggling with them and reading. But then he gets off and on. He's reading on his own and doing stuff that we're like, he's just pulling our leg. I mean, he knows. So we've seen the growth as parents. We've seen it grow. So thank you for all the work that you're doing.
Dr. Brose.
I just want to voice my appreciation for what you're doing over there. But what really caught my ear was when you said you had to step it up for kids and change the program in January a little bit because some things weren't working. And, Mrs. Hinkle always used to say to us, doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. You recognize that that wasn't the case, and I appreciate that you took time to figure it out and then change courses.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Next on the agenda, number 6, request to address the board. Do we have any? Okay. So we'll skip 6 and 7 and 8. Go to information items, 9.1. Social, emotional, and creative arts teachers. Mrs. Irie.
Trying to get here. It's a long walk. Good evening, Board and Dr. Grover. The social, emotional, and creative arts teacher, this is the position that we've been talking about for providing more behavioral supports to the schools. So I'll read the rationale. It is just an information item tonight because the position itself is already within budget, but we wanted to present the full information on the position and what it would be. So to improve students' ability to succeed in the academic setting through explicit instruction in social emotional learning competencies and using art in the catalyst for growth. When social emotional learning activities are integrated throughout all classrooms with a systemic school-wide approach, students can learn to express their voice and perspectives. Are there any questions on the position? No? Okay.
Mrs. Engel.
Just for clarification, these are they adds to staff, or it's just a repurposing of staff numbers? Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. We are repurposing existing budget dollars. So we are not adding, with this position, we are not adding FTEs. I do have one that will come in another agenda item, but this is existing amounts, and these are for next year that we're looking at.
Dr. Brose.
What kind of qualifications do these people need to have in order to be a creative arts teacher?
Well, they have to meet the minimum requirements for teaching. In addition to that, the specific education levels, a bachelor's degree or higher. They have to have a Nebraska teaching certificate or social work or counselor's license is what these positions will be.
But they don't necessarily, or they won't necessarily be art teachers. When you say
Correct.
creative arts, that
Correct.
conjures up something in my head that is not necessarily what you're talking about. So I'm looking for clarification on that.
I'm going to give that to Dr. Dexter.
Yes, we didn't want to specific like visual arts or get specific with the art. With our second step curriculum, it includes some art activities, just another way for kids to express themselves, and it could be through paint, it could be through dance, it could be through music. So creative arts was the way to kind of make it more global, I guess.
Mr. Helinski.
Is the curriculum set for this yet then, as far as what they're going to be doing exactly? Those types of things, is that
And Dr.
to my
Dexter.
left? Okay.
Yes, exactly. We have worked on this together, but she has the curriculum content knowledge.
Our second step curriculum is very spelled out. Our counselors have, worked for the last few years with pacing guides, so they know, what comes next and where in the curriculum. And then with the creative arts, Dr. Lee is really going to help us and coordinate the creative arts activities that are already in second step and do a pacing guide for those as well. And really, it's about, we have a social emotional skill, but then some autonomy to how you're going to address it and some kid choice.
Mr. Barsness.
Just about when did we start looking into this? I know some of us have seen this information through finance and facilities learning and the committee structure that we have, so we've spoken about it, we share this, but this was not a recent thing that we did. When did we start looking into creating this position? Obviously, because we have teachers and administrators have been working together on our data, on our students, but just to get an idea of when did this process start?
It started when counselors were placed back in the classroom. It just was not working, and our counselors were frustrated, our teachers were frustrated, kids were frustrated. So we started early on, and Dr. Dahl dug into data like crazy to just, is it working, not working? And then early on, we've always kind of talked about the need for art in the elementary schools. And so it just all kind of came together when we had the opportunity to add these positions, that we still wanted to keep second step and social emotional learning, and then we wanted to have art, and it's just a great combination.
Mrs. Hinkle. Oh, okay. Oh, Dr. Bros?
Will we be providing some kind of training in second step for the staff members who are going to assume these positions?
Yes, and we have great trainers. Our counselors know it inside and out. And then Second Step has some really good online training and could send somebody on site, but the online training has been really good. The creative arts piece, we can just pull people together. Dr. Lee can bring in some experts to help us with that and just get that pacing guide going, and then we'll implement as we go.
Mrs. Jergens?
For the sake of, I guess, good tracking and record keeping, what will we do to determine the efficacy of this? Perhaps like a year out, what will we be looking for?
And increase in improvement in Panorama scores, because that's what we're measuring with social emotional learning. Second Step is tied closely to the CASEL competencies, which Panorama is built around, so we already have an assessment already built in. And hopefully we'll have an art show maybe.
Yeah. And is some of the thinking that we have middle schoolers and high schoolers that have needs, social and emotional needs, are we trying to get at that a little bit sooner to maybe help the kids with coping mechanisms when they're younger?
And thanks to the surveys at the high school, and maybe Isabella can talk to this, but I hear often, I wish somebody would have taught me how to manage my time, how to self-regulate, how to self-talk. And so Second Step is a big part of teaching kids those skills.
Excellent. Do you want to add anything, Isabella?
Yeah, I'll add to that. I definitely agree on that aspect of like building the behaviors earlier, because I think, you know, behavior is always the hardest to change, and we have those set standards like earlier, and we face that. It would be amazing just to see like already implemented and see the growth we have beyond just implementing it now.
Yeah. Excellent. Well done. Anybody else? 9.2, Assistant School Safety Coordinator, additional staffing request. Ms. Irie.
Thank you. That's me again. The rationale for this position, we're requesting an Assistant School Safety Coordinator to increase the assist and support in the Human Resources Administrative Investigation, to increase support in threat assessments, and increase requests for staff and student educational programs and training. The need for administrative guidance for starting a student judicial board to oversee peer policy violations at GISH, and facilitate SRO responsibilities at K-5 elementary schools, and provide additional ad hoc security support throughout the district as needed. The estimated annual cost is about $89,000 for this full-time position for next year.
Thank you. Any questions? No. Mrs. Hinkle?
I think it's just important to highlight one of the things that you said in there about the administrative guidance for a student judicial board. I think that's very important for people to understand that we're going to have that, and really appreciate the thought process that went into this.
Dr. Bros?
How are we paying for this?
It has been approved through the general fund. I don't know if I don't see Dr. Schroeder. Where are you hiding? There you are. He's in the corner. So we have discussed it, and it has been approved through the general fund to be added to the budget next year.
Ms. Wolf?
I'm all for a student judicial board. But one thing I wanted to ask, is this a one-time ask, or do you foresee this being something that's going to be reoccurring or wanted for the future?
As of right now, the request is being added to FTE, so it would carry forward. We evaluate all positions every year to make sure that we're being as efficient as possible, but the immediate need is identified, and then it will carry forward unless we don't have a need anymore.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
No, it's not working. Okay. I don't know. 9.3 proposed meal prices for Grand Island Public Schools for the 2022-2023 school year. Chris Spellman. Thanks for being here, Chris.
Thank you. I think it's been a little while since I've been here. So thank you for having me here tonight to present our request for meal prices for the 2022-2023 school year. That is a mouthful. And as you're aware, the meals have been provided at no cost to all students since March of 2020 and that will go through June 30th of this summer. And the meals at no cost have been available due to the USDA waivers that took effect at the beginning of the pandemic. And although many have lobbied to continue this, since it's been great for kids and families that struggle, Congress voted to end these benefits as of June of 2022. And so now it's necessary for Nutrition Services to propose the meal prices for the next school year. If anybody is just really curious to know the hows and the whys of how we have determined our school meal prices, I'd be happy to tell you, but like Cherie had mentioned, I'll give you the abbreviated version. And skip that part, the abbreviated version of the meal price proposal. So historically, we've increased meal prices at a small but steady rate of 5 cents per meal per year. Until we were required to utilize this very complicated equation to come up to see whether we were charging enough for the paid students. Although now, since we have a positive balance, another waiver has been extended for schools that have positive balances, that they don't have to follow that paid meal equity standard. And so what we're proposing is that we increase by 5 cents from the 19-20 school year. That's kind of what we've done in the past. I don't want to outprice meals, so families that don't qualify for free or reduced won't be able to eat at school. And so I believe also that we want to get as many children to eat school meals as possible, since they do provide so many nutrients and essential things that kids need to grow. So I believe you have the meal price amounts in front of you. And if you need me to read those off, I sure can. But that's the information that I have for tonight, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Pretty standard stuff.
Mr. Brown.
I'll ask one. So given the difficulties in getting certain food items even delivered, I mean, I suppose that's going to get any better with only the 5 cents increase, which has been minimal through the years. I mean, we think we're going to be okay to get through another year unscathed. I just always worry about being able to get enough food here, and I know this year has been a struggle.
Yeah, I worry about that too. And I always worry about our balance fund. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of the way I'm wired. I'm always worried about spending too much money or anything like that. You know, we are one of those districts that have a larger free and reduced population, and it does kind of hold up our paid price reimbursement. And so I'm really not too worried. The difficult part for the meal prices was figuring out where to start out with after these 2.5 years. And so I didn't want to overstep. And I think our balance is in a good enough position right now that we can, you know, maybe slide back just a little bit, but I didn't want to overprice. Thanks. That's a great question.
Thanks.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to
Bonnie,
call on
do you have a
Mrs.
question?
Hinkle.
Yeah,
Mrs. Hinkle.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you to you and to your staff. Besides the food shortage, I know you've had a resource shortage as well, and it has been quite the effort since March of 2020 to keep everybody fed through the summers and everything, and very, very much appreciate everything that you and your staff have done.
Thank you. We've had lots of support from the district, and we have awesome staff. Read your Thursday GIPS communications newsletter about our drivers. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you. (9.4) GIPS Emergency Operation Plan. Mr. Jacobson.
Good evening.
Hello.
Time to wake up. All right, and I will be brief and to the point. The next part of our safety ideas as we've gone through this in the 3 years I've been here is just to advance to obviously a safe state, as safe as we can, and that means upgrade different areas. GIPS had something that worked fine. We're just upgrading it, and this is going to be how it's going to be transitioned to that. So the emergency operations plan, we're just going to be talking about the transition to an incident command system. I love this because now I don't have to listen to educational acronyms anymore. You guys need to listen to mine, so this is going to work out fantastic. All right, so the objectives we're just going to talk about today is understanding, we're going to understand the reasons for this transition, why we're going to this incident command system. I'm just going to give you some ideas about how these the digital updates will happen, and some improvements to our drills, for safety, and how we're going to start implementing more practices and other tabletop exercises with those and the assessments that come in. And then at the end, we'll just answer some questions. So the emergency operation plan versus the safety and security manual that we have right now. Right now, what emergency operation plans will give you, it parallels what an EMS system has, would be our local EMS, our fire, and our law enforcement. Right now, at this point, we don't have that. We have emergency teams. We have different names for those emergency teams, but they don't fit within an ICS system that you would see in the city. We want to match that. It's kind of like you having two singers. We want them to be able to practice together and know what the notes are together, and that's what this will help us with. This also works perfectly with our standard response protocols, especially during emergency, and it's central to all those drills, all those exercises that we can put in and we can have guidance for. This works with this EOP. Nebraska Department of Education strongly recommends the use of this. In fact, they recommended this a few years ago, started putting some implementation into it, and this is what we've decided to come up with and that we put together for GIPS. It also helps streamline, simplify us in reference to our safety responses, and it gives us those decisions that we can make in a timely manner. But it also allows us to, be able to respond in a timely manner to our stakeholders. The school board would be one of them, the public, so that they know what's going on and we can communicate that out. So the EOP plan has that within there, that system. When I talk about the digital format, right now we print off hundreds and hundreds of copies of our security manual, and each one of us gets those, and then we have to update that. You get it annually. Once in a while, you go to, I go to a school and I look at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, this didn't get this insert and stuff like that. The nice thing about this form is now it's digital. We have it in a digital format. You have in front of you right now the hard copy, and I've just made a draft for you just to kind of so that for you to go over. Please take a pen, make sure it's red, write in it, scratch paper, tell me what you like, what you don't like, and if you can get those back to me, you can. What's the nice thing about that digital format? It gives us instantaneous updates on them. And it helps us to link that data so that stakeholders can see those changes that are happening and how we can update those things. Just not too long ago, I did a little focus group. I brought some students in. We talked to them and teachers, and we learned a little bit from that. Those are things that we could add to some of this and make it within an EOP on an ICS type system that we can say, hey, let's introduce this for safety. And this is just when you think about EOP, just think about the old general safety of those emergencies that we might come into. So that's the nice thing about it. It also gives us quicker response times, and it allows us to have accountability for inspections and those assessments that we have done annually. So we can look at those and we can make those changes within our EOP plan. Also allows for, again, updates, additions, and reviews. Last, everybody's always happy about, saves us a little cost on printing. So we'll have just one book in a building instead of having 25 books in each building, which makes a little bit of sense. So then you can have it on a computerized level. Exercises, drills, assessments. Here's the nice thing about it. It gives us a standard minimal guidance all across the board in each building. You're not going to have one building doing a drill a different way. It allows that to be taken care of with that. It also connects those with those administrators that they can record those drills being done, and so that helps us with our assessments. That's that instant recording of those drills compliance. It also allows our law enforcement officers, our NDE, fire marshals who come in, our insurance company. We just went do a tour with our insurance company yesterday. Allows them to have those assessments. They can see that right through the EOP plan that we have, and that's required by each one of those assessments for what they have. The next one is one that is the next step in improving our safety, and that's exercises. I don't believe we do enough of them. I think we should do more tabletop exercises. The nice thing about an EOP plan, especially under an ICS system, is that we can work with just one group within that section of the ICS. And for instance, if it's just an emergency or emergency responders, which would be like our first aid section, we can work with them and say, this is what your duties are when an event takes place. And then we have, our safety and security section, and then here's your duties, what you do. And then after we get that all done, we can do a practical and maybe bring them all in together. But it saves us time, and we can allow the school building to continue to operate without having to shut things down or bring in, employees from different areas just to do a practice. So that'll help us with our exercises along with the drills that we have. Tabletop exercises can be done, practical exercises, and then we can focus on specific ones as well. The assessments I kind of went over already. This allows for those assessors to come in and they can digitally look at what we have for EOPs. NDE does that, insurance, GIPD. Once it has been approved, the emergency operation plan can be placed as a link to a public-facing website. So this allow that transparency that this is the operations that we do for those standard response protocol events. So make sure that that's in there. Questions?
Mr. Hawley.
I love the fact that we're going to a digital format on this. To the point that you said, a lot of times the paper copies aren't updated. Do you have a plan for distributing changes to the key stakeholders? Obviously, it's going to update in real time, but are you going to be notifying the board, the administration of things that you change, and how will you do that?
So that change will be done. I mean, obviously, we will handle that through an email system, but the link will be updated. So at any time that link is updated, you will see that. So as soon as I update the link, most of the time it's for a school, or let's say we change maybe a site plan, emergency site plan, because some changes in construction. It will be updated on the link, so you will see that, and then the school will receive an email saying this has been updated. Please update your book. I try to make it once a month, but each day I visit one school, and then that's when I do my kind of an audit. I just look through that, make sure that book's been updated. For you, it would probably be received as an email saying this has been updated, and that's how we would update those items.
Well, and that clarifies what I'm saying. I mean, when we talk about like an emergency evacuation plan, for example, people generally know their designated route, and if something like that changes, I like knowing that it's going to them via email so that they know to go look at it.
Right. Yes.
Before something does
happen. Yeah, and we will have that. And each one of the administrators also has another link that goes right directly to those maps. So if they see something that needs to be changed, they notify me, and that comes through the drills. So once they do a drill, right now, and we've been testing it through this year, right now they do a drill. Once they put it in there, it notifies me that drill's been done and there's comments in there. So I can view the comments, then I can update a map and say, because in the comments says, hey, we have two classes crossing each other, can we send them somewhere else? And then we can update the map, we discuss it, and we get it done. Yes.
Mrs. Juergens.
Yes, you were very accurate about the acronym piece. This is a lot of acronyms, so thank you for warning us. I'm just curious about, so I'm just trying to understand this a little bit, and I'm curious if the local, like GIFD, GIPD, do they have a building map in front of them for all of our buildings? Because I'm curious, like if they're sent to any of our buildings and they know to go to this room,
Right.
does that?
So for the fire department,
Yeah.
we have Knox boxes that are set inside the front entrance, and they're pretty much concreted in. And it's just a box that they have access key. Only people that have access is the fire department. They open up that, it gives them a key, a badge, and a map of the whole system.
Okay.
Grand Island Dispatch then has, because we have allowed them access to certain maps, because we want them to have maps too, they can access those maps as well, and we can send those to them. That's the next step, is what we're working on to make sure GIPD gets those as well. So we've worked those systems into the COP plan. As it becomes approved, then we will facilitate, going to the next step. I mean, the future is something should take place, God forbid, something should take place. We will have a camera system that we're putting in now that will be in the cloud that we can allow their dispatchers to have access to during that event, so that they can guide their law enforcement for a quicker response to where they need to go. So that's the future.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, this would be the base. This is our foundation, and we build off that. And those items is how we're doing that. So yes, the maps are out there for them, but only for them only.
Gotcha. And then I just wanted to say thank you so much for all of this work. I feel like this is going to pay off in the long run for cohesion. Lack of confusion seems
I
really
agree.
beneficial.
Ms. Wolf?
Thank you. I just have a few questions just to
Yes.
clarify a few things. To confirm, prior to this, we did have a safety plan in place of some kind, correct? And it's been in place for like 10,000 years, or no, I'm kidding, not 10,000.
And it's still in place.
Yes. Okay. And also to confirm, this is different from our safe returns to school plan. Correct.
Yes.
Okay. Good. All right. That's all I needed.
Oh.
It's great. I appreciate all of this information, and I think it's, I am also a huge appreciator of not having millions of pieces of paper out in the world. So thank you for the digital component.
Mr. Brown?
Well, coming from the safety committee, which I've been on the safety committee for maybe a decade or so, this is a huge step forward, because yes, we've had a safety plans in place, and they were hard copies, and we got updates, and this is by far the biggest change we've ever had. So I commend you. This is a great opportunity to really bring us forward, make it digital. And then the other part of this is like you said, is the practice. And so it can really change how we do that. I, being a former city employee, very familiar with the ICS system, and we got to do some practice runs and thought, well, this is kind of, well, first I didn't think it was so cool. I thought it was a little on the boring side until we actually did the drill. And it happened to be a train derailing in the middle of Grand Island, and it happened to have nuclear waste on it. Well, Jefferson School is not that far away from the track, so it kind of got you thinking about, yeah, there can be some stuff happening that you can't control, and the city and the schools do need to work together. Yes. So it very interesting. I look forward to seeing what kind of practice drills you can come up with,
Right.
and keep people on their toes.
And the nice thing about that is those tabletop exercises would bring the city and fire and those into
Absolutely.
those systems. So yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Ms. Prada Gomez?
Would this have any, how would this affect students? Would it be the regular, like drills we have, or would it be more like of a conversational sit down?
So for students, obviously the
Yeah.
drills, take a big point in it. But if you read the sections through there,
Yeah.
there is a section for parents and for students in there that says, this is what we need from you as a stakeholder. With that being said, when we do those practical exercises, there's always that chance that we could use students and get their input on, this is not working for us, or this is what the next step is. Because there is an area in there for psychological first aid as well, and how we implement that, and we may need students implement on that. Another case is that I've seen this done in other places where the students have done, they do their musicals or they have their arts and they do maybe wounds. That allows our first responders to come in and see, okay, what kind of trauma do I have here? How do I take care of it? Some of that might fall on our teachers, might fall on our ICS system first, because we might see it before we have anybody, arrive that can take care of them because direct to threat or other items. And I'm not just talking about maybe an intruder, I'm talking about tornadoes. Yeah. If that happens, you still have injuries, you still have those kind of traumatic incidents that we would need to have that input. But yes, and along with that input, you may be part of the stakeholder of saying, we need to maybe do it this way. We need to have an assembly area that's better suited for what we need. So yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Jurgens?
Sorry, just one quick question. You requested edits to the binder. Did you mention a date that you would like to have that completed?
Usually my boss tells me.
At least, I guess in 2 weeks, so that we could have it for the next board meeting for final approval. Good question.
Yeah.
Mr. Barsonis?
Thank you. And you mentioned at the beginning how you had students come in, but I just want to emphasize all the work that you're doing, the safety committee, the multiple stakeholders, administrators that are, law enforcement that are part of this conversations, along with Terry. I've been on the safety committee, not as long, because I'm a lot younger, but those conversations, it takes all of us. And even with the position that we previously talked, with low employment and law enforcement still looking, there's a lot of multiple things happening. Just being ready and having the safety of our students, our parents, administrators, or teachers in mind. I just want to emphasize that there's a lot of work that you're doing behind closed doors, so thank you.
Thank you for everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
(9.5) Panorama update, Dr. Dexter.
And just so you know, ESU's Department of Ed would like to steal all of Mr. Jacobson, or at least some of his time, because he's recognized throughout the state for all of his work and just attention to detail and working with all the entities that we need to work with. Okay, Panorama update. And just, it's just been brought to our attention that we need to do a better job of communicating what we're doing with Panorama, social emotional learning. And so we've really taken it as a positive opportunity to improve our website, communication, and just move it forward. Just wanted to start out with a little bit of history. We started in 2016-2017 school year with a team of educators, social workers, psychologists, teachers, counselors, principals, researching different ways to survey our parents, students, and staff to improve our culture and climate of schools. So we started back in 2016-2017. We dug deeply into 3. We researched about 15 different surveys. We had a survey that we used from the Department of Education, but we just really felt like we needed a more robust survey to give us information to be able to develop school improvement plans at each of our buildings. So then in 2017-2018 school year and the 2018-2019 school year, we piloted Panorama at Star, Stolly Park. They were combined at the time. Walnut, and then our 9th grade classes. And that was in grades 3 through 12. So we piloted that for 2 years, and we took 2 years because after the first year, our staff at those 3 building sites were like, oh my gosh, there's so much here. There's no way we can take this out to our staff to explain how to use all the resources available and the data. And so we said, okay, let's do 1 more year of pilot. And then we went with a full plan to administer Panorama twice in the 1920 school year. And it's hard because I had to go back and think, well, what happened in 2020? COVID. So we didn't give the spring survey, but we did work with Panorama to help us do a student survey just to really look at, do Do you have food? Do you have internet access? Do you have contact with an adult? Do you know who to go to for support? And so we pulled feedback from students on that to help us with how counselors and psychologists and our school teams could reach out to students and families. So then in 2021, that was our first full year to implement fall and spring panorama surveys. And then 21-22, we implemented our full plan. And results were first shared at midnight on April 11th, and by about 8:30 on April 12th, we were overwhelmed with questions and concerns and, why are you doing Panorama? And so, just that change, really the first time in all those years that we'd had any, questions or concerns. So then we thought, well, hey, this is an opportunity to take a look at what are the questions coming in, how can we answer them? And a big shout out to Mitch, who worked with Panorama to identify what would be the most pressing, the easiest to understand, to put on our website to communicate with parents. So when we reached out to Panorama, they brought together a whole team, their PR people, their legal people, their research people, and this is happening all across the country, just all of a sudden. And so they've really helped school district develop plans. And we looked at a specific school district, and I was just going through it today, and they had all these videos, and how do parents implement support based on what they learned from Panorama, and I thought, how could a school district do this? Well, they had a huge grant that really supported that, but some really good resources there. Love to be able to see us get there someday. So then Mitch, in all of his great skills, got information up on the website. So I'm going to walk you through that. So you just go to the web page, and we go down all the way to the quick links, and you have Panorama at GIPS. And so it starts out with, again, the history of Grand Island Public Schools, and the cost of the survey per year, and $52,000. And that surveys 10,000 kids, all of their families, and all the staff, plus the resources are unreal. So if a teacher says, across her class, she has kids that don't think they have rigorous curriculum, she can go to the Panorama Resources Bank and find what are some activities I can use to increase the rigor in my instruction. So that's just one example of the resources available. That Panorama, that pays for fall and spring student and staff and a fall parent survey. So what did we use Panorama for? It's a tool for engaging teachers, students, and parents. Specifically for GIPS, we use a platform to ask high-level questions about involvement in school-related activities and overall experience. And so we just really are kind of, I call it a dipstick. Where are we at? How could we get better? And what are we doing really well? And again, back to the culture and climate of the school. And to kind of back up a little bit, our original intent was to have this as an internal use data so that we could develop those school improvement plans based on the data we have. How can we improve the whole building? What benefit does this provide? Again, we go back to, we wanted a more robust survey to help us make decisions about school improvement and to improve our culture and climate. The strategic plan, we have it linked, and you can see 75% or more of students at each school will rate their school highly on school climate. And students will report a 15% increase in their social and emotional development. So we are monitoring two specific competencies in Panorama. When we pulled those out, we felt like those really got at the targeted improvement that we wanted to make as a district. So Panorama surveys, we had several, no, not a whole bunch, but people asking, well, we want to see the questions. Well, my experience with surveys is you don't show the questions because then people can skew the data. So, and we don't show NDE, state assessment questions. And so, I really struggled with why would we show the questions? So when we talked to Panorama, they said, yeah, go ahead, share them. So we have linked the sample surveys. And they're just demos. So it has a question asked and then how students are expected to rate that question. And that's for grades 3 through 5, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12. Actually, 6 through 12 is combined. We also have a sample student survey report. And this is what we're still continuing to work with Panorama on, because if a parent asks for their student-specific survey results, I have to go in, find the student, print it off, and email it back to them. So that's pretty time intensive, and so we're working with Panorama to see how we could do a batch upload and send it out. But we know it's there, and we just have to get a better, more efficient way to do that. Also, in partnership with Panorama, we have never made this a requirement, especially at the high school. We try to get it done during, I think it's English courses. Well, some kids aren't there, some kids are gone for different activities, or sick. We don't go back and make kids make it up. It's just kind of this, we have this 2-week window. We'll get as many kids administered the survey as possible. But students also have the opportunity to opt out. We have not just gone overboard with saying, hey, everybody come opt out of the survey. We have a policy in place with a form where you turn it in and request that you can have your student opt out of that survey. What kind of surveys does GIPS conduct? Social emotional competence and well-being, and it just goes back to some of the things I talked about with second step. We're really seeing, can kids advocate for themselves? Can they identify when they need to take a break? How do they take a break? We teach things about how do you read someone else's facial expressions to know when you're going a little too far, need to back off. But those are some of the skills that we measure, and then we support with our curriculum. Again, it's by building. So, and to the class level to some point, but really identifying what we can do as a group, not just that individual student. What platform do we use? It's all in the cloud with Panorama. They have all of our data there, and then we access it. Who is Panorama? It's an education software company that works with 21,000 schools in all 50 states. In like Seattle, the Hamilton Southeast District is where we've been really digging into their website. So it's well known and well used. We have some consultants that we're wanting to work with on our middle school design, and they said, oh good, you're using Panorama. So it's well known. And the family engagement piece, when we were doing our pilot, Walnut went all out to get parents to take that survey and offered all kinds of prizes and different things, and really got some good data on how do they engage parents more at Walnut. Research-based, how our surveys developed. Was developed under leadership of Dr. Hunter Gelbach and Senior Research Advisor at Panorama Education. Again, their research rep was at the table when they were helping us with what are our next steps. What does a survey measure? Student voice, and allow students to express their perspective about teaching and learning, culture and climate, and their classroom experience. Keyword is their perspective. And so if you have a lot of students with this perspective that my teacher's not real exciting, and I share that because our 9th grade in the pilot, they had, that was kind of one of the areas the teachers wanted to work on. They went to the Panorama resources, found activities about how do you increase your relationship skills with kids, and they saw a big improvement then in the spring survey. So we use it. And it also allows them to give feedback on school safety, sense of belonging, teacher-student relationships, cultural awareness, and diversity and inclusion. Are there questions in the survey that ask about the mental health of my student? And this is was a question that came up with the Parent Rights Act. We have FERPA, where we can't share information, but you have I think it's PRCA, you can't gather information, and there's 8 different attributes. And so one of them is it can't be mental health, and there's one other, or trauma treatment. So if it addresses any one of those 8, you have to get specific permission in writing to administer the survey, but Panorama does not do that, so that we don't have to get specific individual permission. Are there questions included in the survey that ask about the political or religious benefits of my student? There are not. How does Panorama keep students' data safe? They are locked down. And we had a teacher that just was having trouble getting on, and so she just contacted Panorama and asked for access. And Panorama immediately got with me and said, do you want to do this? And can you explain the proper channels? And so we did. So they work very closely with Corey and I and Dr. Dahl. And you also see their Panorama privacy information. Who can see my students' responses and results? And this is what we've really struggled with. And as a team, we go back and forth. I'm all about, we can trust teachers to be professionals, and they're not going to share it inappropriately. And Corey's like, I don't know, Robin, we got to keep this locked down because it's FERPA and we can't share this. And so we go back and forth on that. Currently, district administrators who coordinate with Panorama have access to all student data. Building principals have access to the students in their buildings, and certified teachers and certified staff support, such as counselors, social workers, psychs, can view their class and our course assigned students. They can't see every student in the building, but they can see those students that are assigned to them. How are the findings of the survey shared? We have just shared it in the at the building sites. Again, back to that school improvement planning process. We have shared it through the strategic plan, those two competency levels. We do plan, Panorama's helping us with an aggregate presentation, and right now about overall as a district, what are the results as an aggregate. We wouldn't be pulling out subgroups. And then sharing those findings. Okay, then this is the key on how do I get an individual student's report. So right now, Phil Cool in our Let's Talk department, Mitch just called him up and said, can you add a link? And so he did. So if parents want an individual report, they can go to Let's Talk, and I think I can go there. Right here. Thank you.
And then in your category section at the top, select a topic. The very top.
Top.
It's like a white box at the very top.
Down. Here? Nope. Oh, right here. Gosh, right in front of me. Panorama. There it is. All right. And then you can type Panorama, your message, and we would need a parent to say, I am requesting specific information from Panorama on my student, and we really need the student ID number, which we probably need to put that in the directions so that we know that parent can get access. Okay. And it's just a one sheet. We're going to show it a little bit later. So what kinds of information does Panorama collect from my students? You can see the questions. The data is collected through these surveys is owned by the school district, not the company. Engage in data mining? No, they do not. They do not sell our information. And share data with faith? No, we do not share. It's our data to share. And so, and again, we're just embarking on how do we share individual reports with parents. Okay, Mitch, did I miss the report?
Yes, if you scroll back up to where the survey links are, Dr. Dexter.
Oh, that's right.
It's right underneath under report sample.
Okay, right here. So this is what, if you do a Let's Talk ticket, you tell me what student you want a report on, this is what I would send you. So you'll have the student name, you'll have the year, which would be the 21-22 school year, and then you'll see SEL skills, self-management. So we only did administer the survey in October and March, so you would see a trend line. 5 is the highest. You have social awareness, you have growth mindset, emotion regulation, self-efficacy, and grit. And you can see that this student, imaginary student, improved in self-management, but a little shaky on self-efficacy and grit. And these terms are all part of CASEL, which is really an international research agency that really just concentrates on social emotional learning, and they develop these competencies. And so we've identified those areas to measure. So I think I'm done rattling. Dr. Grover, Mitch, anything I missed?
Any questions? Mrs. Hinkle?
Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you very much for all this information, for getting it out there. I hope everyone listened to it. We'll need to maybe take a cut of the YouTube and put it out there for everyone to release. But I wanted to highlight something that you said that I think that's very important, that the results weren't released to the school district until April 11th. And by April 12th at midnight, you were getting questions and things were being posted.
Actually, April 11th at midnight, they were released.
Got it, okay.
We as staff had an email that got open mine at 6:08 that said data is now available, and then by 8:30 it was posted on.
Yep. So just want to make sure when people made the comments that we were hiding things, that we didn't even have the opportunity to react to it as a district, and I think that's important for everybody to understand. And you shared about the pilot program. I really appreciate that. But that also means then that throughout that process from 2016 on, there were presentations at the Board of Education meetings about this, and then we approved the survey and all of that, correct?
Yes, correct.
So it was public information that we were doing this. And again, parents get the survey too, so they see a survey from a similar company. And then, like you shared, we have shared out results before, maybe not, all together, but like through different conversations that we've had. I remember, like you said, with our strategic plan and stuff, so that's important. So the one question I have about sharing it with parents, I get that, but at the same time, how do we think that's going to make the students feel? Because the students probably are led to believe that this is not really going to be shared with anybody specifically for themselves, right?
Right. And so it's going to be really important because when you saw the report, it's pretty general.
Yeah.
And we do not or cannot share open responses. And those are some of the things that were shared on Facebook because we can't get to the individual student level on open-ended responses. Okay. So none of that will be reported. One of the things that we're working on Panorama with is that within our proctor guidelines that we let students know that teachers will be looking at these, parents now will be looking at them, and be open about that.
Okay, because so that's good about the comments, you can't tie them to a student, so I understand that. But I was just curious, like if a student was maybe, I don't know, communicating something and then could it cause issues at home? So I don't know how to say that right.
Right, and they have I call it a Wordle, but it'll pull up like key things that all kids identified, and it's always improve lunch. Sorry, Chris. But that pulls it all up. And then we can also, the counselors, building administrators can go in and just look at responses. And so like we had a student say, I just want to kill myself. And so I reached out to Panorama and I said, can you tell us who this kid is? We've got to get to him. And they did. And I think this year we had 12 that I had to call Panorama and say, would you give us the name? And it's always, I'm the only one that can contact Panorama to get that name. But our counselors and social workers were like, if we know, we've got to get to it. And so we were able to do that.
Well, and that's very good. I mean, that's very important. But if that something like that happens, parents are involved or guardians are involved at that time, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And then again, you mentioned that it was optional. It's just like any other survey that we're given in our lives. You can choose to do it. You can choose not to do it. So, and then I guess I'm just going to ask the question that is being asked a lot. Why do people associate this with critical race theory?
And we asked Panorama that too, and there were, connections with a researcher, ill-informed. Social emotional learning isn't critical race theory. It's about how do I take care of myself and, just improve my well-being. And so I just don't know where the connection is.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Barsonis.
No, thank you. I think it's good to go back and you say, I think this enforces the idea of let's continue to do what we can to serve our students, help our administrators, help our teachers. And when we have the concern of parents, I think that's also a call for us as parents in the community to say we also need to make sure we're having those conversations with our students. We have very different students, very different backgrounds. So anything we can do in that partnership with parents, with students, and the data that has been put on that website, it's what it is. It's the real information. So it's there. Thank you.
Dr. Brose.
One more time, Dr. Dexter, how are we paying for this? I know we talked about that a long time ago, but it's a question that has come up on social media. So if you just run through that one more time.
And we use Title IV funds, and if you think of Power Camp, and the whole premise behind that was to bring kids in, have some fun, learn how to self-regulate, manage yourself, and so we can use Title IV funds. And because we were using federal funds to purchase it, we had to do our due diligence in trying to find out how data was shared, and I mean, we had to do that.
Mrs. Juergens.
I just wanted to share from how I see a common sense perspective to say that in any business, in any entity, in any capacity, surveys are a very normal practice. It is a good way to measure the pulse of your community, your coworkers, your staff members, in our case, our 9,000 plus kids. So if we're never checking in with them in some sort of measurable way, I just don't know how we could ever look at the data and try to improve acutely where we need to. So just honestly, I know I sit here as a board member right now, but from a parent perspective, I really do appreciate this. It's a way to kind of take the pulse of what's happening. And honestly, to your credit, responding to those concerns that you found, was it 9 that you had to 12 that you had to reach out to Panorama and say, I see a major issue here. Can you give me a name? I mean, to be fair, that could have been life-saving. So thank you. Thank you for all this work. I think that it makes too much sense. Thank you.
Great team.
Anybody else? Dr. Brose?
I just have one more comment. And when you look at those categories that you identified, self-regulation and those things, I think about those in terms of characteristics that people should carry into the workforce. And if you look at it as a carryover into being college, career, community ready, that helps us figure out what we need to do to help kids be ready in those 6 or 7 areas that you identified. Yeah. There is a benefit in the long run. It's not just immediate.
Yeah, and real short, funny story. A counselor, and you talked about getting to kids at the early elementary age, but I think he was a 2nd grader, and just kind of would lose it and get in people's faces, and so the counselor started noticing that he would take those deep breaths, kind of stand back, and she said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm getting into my Yeti body." and the Yeti body is kind of that deep breathing kind of thing. But I mean, 2nd grader, so. Okay.
I just wanted to say one thing too. So we had these 12 students that were having a particularly hard time, and maybe all of the students that came out of our households had great support at home, but some of these kids are really looking for someone, and that might be a survey. They are looking for help, they are crying for help, and that might be a survey. And so I really think it did a good job helping those particular 12, and I think it's always good for adolescents in particular to have kind of an outlet to be able to put some of that emotional baggage that they're carrying around. People want to say COVID is over, but COVID is not over. COVID is in our classroom every single day, and kids are still really, really struggling. And it is saying COVID is still existent is not a cop-out. It's there, and I'm just really glad that we have this as a tool to use to be able to reach students. It's just so vitally important. So thank you so much, and thank you to your team.
And we had one kid say, "I just wanted to see if anybody read these."
Oh, sorry, Dave.
You're fine. I had
Wake
my
up, wake up.
I had my light on, and then Bonnie actually asked my question, so I shut it off. But I thought of another one as I was going through here. Parents obviously had the invitation to take that. Do we know how many parents actually took it as far as the survey? Was it, I mean, a percentage? Do you have that number?
We do. I don't have it in my head right
Was
now.
it? I mean, but was it pretty? I mean, were you surprised by the number either way, or?
You know, and it's elementary. We typically have more. Higher percentage. Middle school, when the middle schools really go after it, because we usually give it during parent-teacher conferences, so they have, you know, if you take your survey, put a ticket in to win a TV. So that helped. Our most difficult population is the high school, is to get parents to complete.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Hinkle?
And this, I'm sorry, but kind of piggybacking off of what Mrs. Jurgens said. So the other thing about the survey is that, like you said, it gives us the data, but it tells us really what is the scope of issues we need to address. Like, do we overreact? Do we underreact? And of course, we're hearing a lot about different climate culture issues at this. And when I look at the questions, that's exactly what we're trying to figure out. That's from both students and staff and teachers and parents. And so it's going to help us make better decisions and react appropriately to it. So it's just ironic that there's concerns about it when really that's what they want us to be addressing. So.
And just like when we had the previous survey, we told principals you need a third goal. You have reading, math, and culture, climate. Well, we didn't have any data, and so that, you know, we'll make the building friendlier with some of them. But Mr. Bishop, our MTSS coordinator for positive behavior supports, he meets with every principal and goes through, and he's real big on, okay, what's a strength you've got? And then it's, okay, what's an area that you can work on? So.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Dexter. Anybody else? Okay, great presentation. 5.6, 2022-2023 Parent-Student Handbook. Dr.
Try
Dexter.
to say that real fast.
Yeah, seriously.
And what I'm going to do is just go quickly through, because you have this same sheet as an attachment. But we have the student handbook, and then every year we have a team, which we're really good at working via Zoom and email to make any updates, revisions. And our team's just really good about all year long. They have folders where they just stick in notes that we got to make sure we get this in the handbook or we change this. So I'll just real quickly go through the changes that I'm proposing. We need to update the excessive absenteeism policy to match our policy. We need to match it in the handbook. And then time and space for student prayer. We had it really spelled out for senior high, but Nate Balcom at Newell called and he said, well, what about elementary kids? And so we put kind of a general plan for school prayer for K-8, because they have different spaces and different things that they need to work around. So again, principal pointed that out. And then the absence codes we've added, or the state added 2 different codes. ABT is absent due to transportation. And I'm really hoping they're going to track this data so that they'll give us some more funding to have transportation. So when a parent calls in and said, I've got a flat tire or my car won't start, we can code it as that. And then illness, when a parent calls in and says, my kid is sick, we can report it as ill and excused. Instead of, nope, got to get a doctor's note, we can code it that way. And then again, the student appearance policy, and senior high is going to town on this. They have really, and I don't know, Isabella, you might share more. The individual academies have just talked to kids about, okay, is that appropriate or is that inappropriate? Why? And just really sharing how this is going to look next year. So, any comments, Isabella?
It's been a hot topic for me. So it's definitely concurrent and prevalent. It's like I've seen it in the hall. It's just like already the conversation is going. But I think we're putting a good foot forward, and I am for it.
Good. Thank you. And then our grading system, and I don't want to confuse this with grading and reporting policy that we're working on. This is just kind of some basic level information about how we report grades at the elementary, middle, and high school. And then, of course, we talk about credit. And Then we have our Gips senior high credits for graduation. You know, we added personal finance, and Mr. Phillips reminded me that, yeah, it's a law now. We have to add computer science. So we'll be adding that. And then special education, you know, every year we have more kind of rules and guidance, and so we're just updating that based on policy that we received from Perry Law Firm. And so those are the major changes for special ed. And so those are the changes for 22-23 handbook. And this is information tonight, and then action in June.
Any questions? Doesn't look like it. Thank you. 9.7, ESSER 3, purchase for fine arts, visual, and elementary music. Dr. Lee?
Good evening, and thanks for having me here again. I've been kind of a regular here in these last few months, so it's always good to see you all again. And I just a couple of things before we get started with this. I want to, first of all, thank you for the previous support on the previous instrument purchase. That is already being implemented and in use and making a big difference for our kids already. And so what you have in front of you with these next two are simply a continuation of that. The first round that we did a few months ago was for instrumental music, and what these are the same process but for elementary music and for our visual arts programs. And same process, same philosophy, same purpose, where we were looking for what we currently have and what condition some of this equipment was in, and then deciding what do we need to fix, upgrade, just replace, and that's where this comes in. With the elementary music portion of it, another aspect of this proposal was to even the playing field across the 14 buildings. Because in looking at the inventories across those buildings, we found that we had some inequities as far as for example, one building might have this piece of equipment like a metallophone of some kind, but then another building does not. And trying to make sure that kids across our district through those elementary grades have access to the same equipment, the same I guess curricular materials would be the purpose behind that. And with the visual arts, it was our visual arts program is growing. If you had the opportunity to visit the Stewart Museum these last few weeks and see that magnificent art display by our kids, it was so neat. The things that are being created, even astonishingly, the level of detail and craft that was happening at the middle school level, just amazing things. And so what the purchase is for those art, the visual arts, are just upgrading the equipment and again doing that, just bringing that up to where we feel the potential of that program can grow to.
Thank you. Any questions? Ms. Wolf?
I'm super excited about ukuleles, but besides that, because I think they're a very accessible instrument, and then when you see professional groups, they're very portable. You can throw them in a lot of things and they won't get damaged. Not recommending that. However, I just want to confirm, and this may not be exactly directed toward you. I may need Dr. Dexter to answer this. But I just want to confirm that we are making these purchases with ESSER dollars, and we are doing this because we made sure to follow the protocol set forth that required us to do a safe return to school plan to therefore acquire or obtain these ESSER dollars.
So high-quality resources, and we've been very diligent about that in our core curriculum. And we got behind in our equipment, which would be our high-quality resources to teach fine arts in the fine arts areas. With the ESSER's $3, we focused on mental health and fine arts and athletics, so that we could engage kids. We hear all across the district that it's hard to get kids back. They're used to staying home, crawling in the basement or a dark room with a video game, and I'm not going to go to band camp. So that was how we presented it to NDE. We have to go through the bidding process, and we have to also, once that's done, I send it to the NDE committee that reviews it to approve for purchases. When we asked for a grand piano, they were like, grand piano? And, we tried to push that through, but they said no. And so they look at it with a fine-tooth comb, and we can't move forward with the purchases until I have that approval.
Thank you. Anybody else? Nope.
And Erica stole my question.
Oh.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
But the other part of my question is, which board committee has been involved in the development and approval of this list?
F&F?
My point is, I want.
Ding, 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 ding.
It was a quiz?
Well, my point is that we do so much work through the committee system, and this isn't just, it's appearing maybe between, with 5 of you tonight, but 4 of us have seen this, and 4 of us have looked at this. And we do a lot of our work through the committees where we have a lot of give and take, and we ask questions. Like mine was, when was the last time we bought ORF instruments? And it's been a long time. So anyway, that was my point with asking that question.
And before it gets to that committee, Dr. Lee has been awesome. He works with all of the fine arts, the arts teachers. I mean, you should see the spreadsheets. It was, this is what I want. Okay, now this is what you need. Okay, now this is what we're going to focus on. And his processes have been just above reproach. So there's a lot of work before it ever gets to facilities.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Lee.
Thank you.
9.8, Edmentum renewal. Mr. Phillips.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here to present the renewal for our Edmentum software platform. Edmentum has gone, in just my short time here, through a pretty big change. When we first got in here, we went through and really looked at where it was being used, where it was not being used, and we trimmed off quite a bit because we were paying for it, but it was not being used in particular buildings. And then what we've seen over the last 2 years with the virtual secondary school, our curriculum coordinators really have dug into it to where if we have a student that fails, say, integrated 3, we used to throw them into an Edmentum course that kind of aligned to chemistry, and they would take that and earn their credit. But Anya Covarrubias, and she's been way ahead in the game. She and the task force in science have gone through and built out custom courses in Edmentum for integrated science 1, 2, and 3. So if a student doesn't pass integrated 1, 2, or 3, they're not taking a random different class. They're taking a class that meets those same standards and expectations that all the rest of the kids are. We're also going through some policy work on defining the expectations of our credit recovery in GISH Online, what that looks like for credit accrual as we look to offer courses that way. Computer science being one that does allow for the option of using an online course or traditional face-to-face. So we're in a real good place with Edmentum, and we're getting our pieces in place to have a lot more structure and oversight over it than what it's been the past few years. They also worked with us to give us a little better pricing on this. So they've been great to work with, great support, great training for our teachers, and have been a great company to work with. With that, I would answer any questions you might have. And this did also go through the F&F committee and grilled me.
Yeah. Oh, there she is, Ms. Wolf.
This is info in action, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Mr. Brown.
So pre-pandemic, how many students on normal would go through this, use this software?
I couldn't even tell you. I can pull those numbers and get it, but it pre-pandemic it was used strictly for credit recovery.
Right.
So if a student failed a core class, they would have that option. More often than not used for seniors that were getting close to the finish line that didn't have the time to take it the next year. With Success Academy, they use it extensively throughout all of their years, so they're doing more of the credit accrual to meet those elective credits and core credits.
But in the last 2 years, I'm assuming that's kind of taken off, right? I mean,
Right,
we've got more
it's
and
ramped
more,
up
yeah.
significantly, especially with our virtual school, using that extensively as well.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Grand Island Senior High addition and renovation, Mr. Petch.
Thank you, President Elbers and all. I'm going to have Dr. Schroeder hand out a hard copy because I'm going to talk about all three of the ESSER projects. And in one case, we're not going to recommend to move one of those forward. But this kind of, as we met with F&F, I mean, there's a lot of things that it took us a lot of time through that discussion in our last meeting. And so, we put together our projects from numbers back last August. And what we've seen is that, you can add Davis-Bacon as one of the reasons that these costs went up. Our economy, shocker, our costs went up. Everybody in schools in Nebraska and other businesses, I mean the construction market is pretty saturated right now, so our timing's not that good. So those factors contribute to looking at these numbers and you go, whoa, you missed something. No, we didn't, but we did end up in a market that really did not contribute to highly competitive bidding. And so just kind of starting from the top there, our total ESSERs for the construction projects is $8.9 million. And so our first project, and if it's up on the board, our recommendation there. And so for senior high to do, it's an addition onto the cafeteria and the band area, and then also security vestibules at both the two main entrances. Our initial estimated cost, again, from last August was $1,844,524. Well, we put together what an actual cost is. So that actual cost, per that note down there, includes the base bid and the fees in this case. Because with the federal projects and how we have to do that, so we have to include everything in that project, including furniture and all the parts and pieces. And so that's what we did on this particular project. And you can see our difference there is $2 million. It literally doubled the cost. Did not see that coming. We had, in this case, two bidders. One being Chief Construction and then the other one being Perry Reed. You can look at those numbers in that note. Chief in there at a little over $4 million, with Perry Reed, basically $3.7 million. To me, there's a little bit of difference there, quite a bit of difference. I think again back to not a lot of competition. some of these other factors I'd mentioned earlier, driving those numbers up. It's an important project, and I think that, I think Perry Reed can do a good job for us. We did check references, and we talked with them extensively just on their capabilities because we've not worked with them before. Feel that quite a bit of confidence that we can recommend them to do this project and end up with the results that we typically do, and that's a high quality build. I also just threw the design fee cost on there just so not only because I'll talk about the engineering folks later, because it was, again, basically those costs doubled, because if your project cost doubles, then their percentage goes up with that. So just kind of keep that in mind. So for the high school, again, recommending the Perry Reed folks to do that. And, I'll ask, I don't know if you have any questions, as I can stop there, and because this is one of the recommendations.
No questions?
Awesome.
I'll just make a comment again, that we did go over this very in length in the finance and facility meeting, probably at the last, 2 board meetings or 2 committee meetings. So thank you for putting this chart together to make it easy for all the board members to see, but just know that we really worked through this, so thank you.
And, in the meeting, this is the result of that meeting, because, it's just a lot of information, and I wanted to put some things that would point out, here are those costs, so that you can see those. It's because doesn't show up in that recommendation that's up on the screen right now, but and it allows us to, maybe I can answer some of the questions before you ask them with this, and I thought that was a great idea by the finance committee to just recommend us to move that forward. So thanks, Bonnie. And then, so next,
Terry has a question before you keep going. Terry has a question.
Before you move on, and the prices, the quotes or the prices you're seeing here are pre any kind of value engineering that we would be able to be doing. That's usually the next step, I would assume, in any time you get a bid that's going to be a little high. You want to take a look at the value you're getting and what for each part and piece. So what you're looking at right now is the total bid, and anything after that you could value engineer would help if we could.
And we also had a conversation, and I appreciate you bringing that up. We already talked to these folks, and we do have a list of some things, and they're still working on some things as well. I can tell you this project is not over-designed, but we are going to look at anything that is at least low to medium hanging fruit that we might be able to do differently. I can tell you that, there's a couple items, for instance, like the Winger furniture, band storage is one piece of it, and then they also have these sound rooms that are part of it as well. We're going to look and see, because with the schools, we have the state bid that we can go and look at that purchasing agreement with that and see if, we could potentially buy that equipment for a lot less. If it makes sense, maybe we do that. Of course, that money does not come out of the ESSER dollars. It comes out of general fund dollars. So it would be on us. And that's one of the mechanisms that I'm going to try to employ on these couple that we're talking about tonight, so that that gives us a little bit, hopefully, maybe a little more to work with as we look forward to the next, several projects that we will take on. Because we do have money potentially if we, as I go through this, we're going to have about $2.5 million to allocate to our, security vestibule, let's say at Walnut, or or maybe we'd even do something at Gates still. I don't know. I'll kind of maybe talk about that when we get a little bit farther down through this.
Thanks,
Terry. So Conical Elementary is the next one. It's basically an HVAC upgrade. And because we saw what did happen with the senior high, we went ahead and did pull a couple things out of there to be self-performed, which basically are the temperature controls and the air balancing. So I am going to use my budget to, take care of that piece of it. I want to take the credit or blame or whatever for the estimate, because that's on Dan Petch. It should have been closer to 1.2 to 1.4 million. This number here is several years old, and it's also mainly just equipment. And so what it does not encompass is that we're also going to go into classrooms and corridors and remove ceilings and put new lighting in some areas. So, I mean, it's an upgrade. It's also required because, again, I didn't have those numbers in there when we put these together back in August. We have to build a couple in each classroom. For instance, they'll have a closet the equipment has to fit in, so we have to construct those and put those in there, paint, patch floor kind of thing. So that all pushes into that actual cost. And so the total actual cost is over double what that estimate was. Difference being almost $1 million. Actual costs are, there was an alternate in there as well for a chiller, which again, not part of my original number, but as time has went forward, it's going to be needed to be part of that total build. At least that's would be the opinion of my mechanical team as well as our electrical mechanical design team. So just talking about bids, got one. And that one was Mid-Plains Construction out of Grand Island for $1,631,000. I'll note too that Ken reached out to quite a few other districts and asked this question. So, did this happen to you? And the answer is yes. They're getting one or two bids for big projects that are using a general contractor and doing a lot of things, or they're getting one bid in particular for like the mechanical projects. So we're experiencing what everyone else is experiencing. Still feel that it's valid to move these projects forward. I'm probably commenting later, but I think we're going to want to assess when the next projects that we want to bid and make that timing work a little better for us. Historically, we've never had 3 projects bid out in the same month for some of those same purposes, is that you want to be able to have time to spread them out, make sure you have competition in the area. And, we're really running hard to try to get ready so that we could get these started this summer and then finish next summer, because all of them have to kind of do that, basically. And we knew this summer that we would not be able to actually get into some of these existing areas to do the work because we won't be able to get the materials. The supply chain thing, I'm getting tired of hearing that, and I think you guys probably are too. So we're gonna plan as best we can. I have talked with the suppliers for the stuff on this project in particular, and the electrical stuff is going to be the higher, longer lead time things, although we think that we'll be able to get most of that equipment in a somewhat timely manner to get the project started this year, and then we'll finish it off next summer, will be the schedule for it. Same thing with the high school. Went ahead and, like I had done before, to be able to see what we spend for design fees. That alternate I mentioned was a chiller. It's also on there. And then the total self-performed is that $98,305. So I'll have to find some place to take that. That'll impact what we do on next year's project list. It's just just how it is. And I'm not super concerned about that, as long as the next steps that we make for our other project, the first one I talked about, make sure we don't hamstring ourselves too much to be able to do good projects for our next summer, because I still got a list and it's pretty large. Any questions on Conical? Very good. Gates Elementary. This one, we did create or try to, where we could save money, value engineering ahead of time, and so we've got 9 alternates for that. You know, they range from some storm drainage that would be good, but not a have to. New gym floor, additional flooring and ceilings in some areas of the building to try to expand into that building, so it's newer, kind of improvements. But those aren't going to come to fruition. But our estimated cost was at basically $2.8 million. If we had the total actual cost completed, we're looking at almost 6.157. I mean, more than double. You can see in the red what that difference is, and so what that says, if you do that math, if you do all 3 of these, that goes over the 8.9, and we have some of that put together right down below. But I guess I want to talk a little bit just about we went ahead and opened 1 bid for that project, so there was no competition. Chief Construction's number was $5,647,530. Kind of way out of line. I mean, right now, a year ago, we were looking at our square foot cost for new area at $275 a square foot. Presently, the high school is at $325 a square foot. This is $425 a square foot. That is just, I can't recommend it. I'm going to tell you that Gates was one of the most important projects on this list, and it's not easy for me to say no. But, timing's not right. This number isn't going to work for us. Should we consider looking at, way downsizing what we do at Gates? For instance, just do that addition piece with the needed cafeteria, kitchen, restroom thing, and that's it. I mean, we might be able to get that done. We'll analyze that as we, look in the future projects that we want to do. Because, again, this was very, very important. Gates was security vestibule, reorganizing the office. It also did work for the nurses area to make it more functional and ADA compliant. It went into the building and did some other areas that to add doors, kind of thing, because we actually had some kind of open concept area. It did some work with ceilings in several rooms to improve the HVAC. We did a lot of things with it. And so those are a couple of items that I'll probably try to bring in to next year's project list. If we don't do anything at Gates, we'll have some project list stuff that we'll pay for out of that project list budget for next year. But that's just kind of where it's at. One thing that I'll tell you is that no matter if we did move it forward or not, we still have to pay the design fee, and so we included that on there. So if, no matter what we do, we're still going to be paying essentially $350,000 to our designers. Our design fees will fluctuate a little bit because we still have to actually get the contracts, go back and look at, for instance, the percentages that they get a charge. The mechanical folks are based off of the schedule values and what those costs for that equipment is, and then they apply that percentage to that. If we went ahead with the full design, because the current fee is basically 80%, so it would end up being in that $438,000 range. And then the one alternate number 8 that we would probably take out of there and pay for, as a self-performed, would be the controls and things. So coming down to that summary, we're at that 8.9. So if we did all 3, we're $3,001,57 over what we have, and we don't have the capacity by any means in our next year's budget, no matter what we do, to get that down to anything manageable. And below that, so for what we're proposing right now with our 8.9, we subtract off the cost for the two projects, the 5.9, and then we also have to pay for, again, the Gates fees. So that'll give us somewhere around 2.65 million to apply to the future projects if we don't do Gates. So I'll back up on Gates and say, do you have any questions on Gates?
Mrs. Hinkle.
Can you just remind us because there's a certain time frame that we have to utilize this money from the ESSER funds, correct?
Yep.
Can you remind us what that is?
Would be the summer of 2024.
Do you just have to break ground by 2024?
If we wait that long, we can apply for an extension, but I think we'd want to be, whatever projects that I think we want to do, we'd want to probably try to get those done in that 2023 summer kind of thing.
You're not anticipating prices coming down, are you?
I'm not, but I'll tell you what, I do anticipate competition. I think that competition, this lack of competition in particular, has really hit us hard on this particular project.
Is that because there's so many building projects going on right now?
I'm going to tell you, the construction market is saturated from what the information we've gathered using myself, CMBA, and talking to the contractors. Same thing. They're just so busy that, I think the costs are going to come down a little bit. The materials aren't going to, but if you're a business, a subcontractor, doing electrical or something, you've got all these jobs, and you're going to probably have a number higher, because if I get it, I get it, and if I don't, I won't care, because I still got plenty of other jobs that carry me. I don't know if anyone else in the group has any, comments to that, or, want to beat me up a little bit on it. I just know this is the information I've got. And if you guys have any other experience or anything, tell me. But I truly think that next year that we'll have better competition. I think that at least won't make these prices go way down, but I think it'll be a little more manageable. A factor in here that we did not compute in when we did our estimates originally is Davis-Bacon. Davis-Bacon impacts the costs of jobs. I've talked to several contractors. In fact, I had one that wouldn't even put a bid in as a subcontractor because of it. And so didn't see that coming. Unfortunately, I think we'll experience some of this if we do medical pathway, because it's also under the Davis-Bacon.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, guys?
So recommendations, again, move forward with senior high, move forward with Conical, table Gates, and hope to come back and we're going to do some things at Gates, I guarantee that. I'm not sure if it'll be through the ESSER dollars or if it's going to be through general fund. There's just a lot of things about Gates. The hard sell on Gates is it's the building age. We do an addition there. Are we going to go tear that building down in 5 years? No. Are we going to go tear that building down in 10 or 15? Maybe. But that's way down the line, so.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm not leaving.
Oh, you're not leaving. Do you have better news on the next one?
I don't. I'm the Debbie Downer tonight, and I apologize for that. So this is kind of the Dan Petch show here at the end. Now I'll try to go through here. These are actually pretty quick. It has to do with ETI, and I talked to F&F, and I said, guys, because of the building increased costs, we're going to have revised letters of agreement for that work, because it basically doubled from what they had before. And I think that's significant enough that, I want you guys to know what those look like. So, you know, because we'll have to, you know, just sign that. So for ETI, you know, what we talked about last time was they were at, you know, $47,000 for the senior high addition remodel. If you look up on the board there, the recommendation is still to, you know, move them forward, but it went from 47 to 87,300. Very large, you know, increase. It's, again, those aren't 100% solid numbers because I still have to look at their schedule values and apply their percentages accordingly so that we know what that is. But that's the estimate. If we look at the Conical project, what we had talked about previous, their cost was estimated at $54,400. That is now again doubled. Now it's $102,000. And then, you know, I'll mention Gates, although, you know, we're not going to necessarily move it forward, but Gates, we were at $66,070. That moved up to $99,445. So significant increases that I want to make sure that I keep the board informed on what some of those are as we move forward, so you can understand my consternation with this whole thing. At no point in time in my 16 plus years being with the district have we ever taken a large project and put it on the table. Just never had to. But the climate we're in and just the factors there, as I mentioned before, is just going to make us do things that we have not done in the past. Questions on those contracts? Well,
So what are you gonna do for your construction update?
Just a little information as we're on medical pathway. We'll have the drawings finalized this month. Then those drawings have to go for a review by the folks from EDA. Right? So that's the $1.75 million grant. And so they have to approve everything that we have on those drawings. And we've learned a few other things too, of things that they won't approve. So again, back to the federal projects, we designed it with all the furniture, and equipment, like the ambulance simulator, the whirlpools. Well, those aren't part of what they'll approve because they are not built into that. And so we'll have to pull those out and you know, pay for those through hopefully, you know, our fundraising efforts, but not through the federal dollars. So backing up, we still have a good, after this month, they'll have to go through review and get their okay. Once that takes place, and I don't know, let's just say it's 4 weeks, and we find out that we've fundraised enough dollars that we think we'll be able to pay for that project, then we will put it out for proposal, put it out for bid, take those bids, and then review again with those folks to make sure they're okay with those, and then move the project forward. We've never had to go through the federal piece within the project, so we're learning a few things. I was trying to think of anything else that came out from that meeting that we should mention. Robin, I don't know. They're very helpful with our questions and everything.
Yeah, and just the ARP dollars and trying to use those, and we're at 20% match.
Up to 80% of federal funds can be used for the total cost of the project.
Yeah, and so we could use, because we're only at 40 now.
Correct.
So we could use if we get the ARP money, we could use that as a match, and that was big to know, but we don't know that we're going to get the ARP money either. So.
And I am going to do a little more homework with CMBA, with the information we know now, with Davis Bacon being part of this. we need to look at the money that we've told them that we need for fundraising because we put a 6% escalator in for inflation. Well, I think that's more like 15 now, plus Davis-Bacon. So, God, I'm just not doing very good tonight. No smiles or nothing. Apologize again, but these are the facts, and I want you to know what they are, so that when it comes around and we go, we can't do this one either, I mean, you're knowing at least some of the reasons why. I mean, we really want to do this project. It's super important to us. I think we all would agree to that. But if you can't pay for it, you can't do it. So with that, I'm going to conclude my construction report. And I will say that one project we have is the old ELC. That demolition is going to get started. The actual building coming down demolition here within the next couple weeks. So just an FYI. And we will have some bricks to set aside for the, I know I get some smiles on that one, for the public to come and get, so.
Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, yeah, on Yelp. 9.16, student rep report. Ms. Prada Gomez.
Thank you. So proud of the Islander boys and girls track teams. They competed very well at districts and will be going to Omaha next week for states. They are Omaha bound. We have a successful track season with many students going to state. The GI Cup for golf has returned back to Gips after racking up 400 points. Islander boys baseball won 28-1 earlier this month. Soccer varsity boys won the first round of districts against Omaha Northwest. Girls JV tennis won earlier this week over Norfolk 19-3, as well as varsity tennis 8-1 to Norfolk. The vocal concert for show choir is also tonight, or was also tonight. STUCO, Student Council, has already had their theme for homecoming next year, Enchanted Garden. We are looking to better incorporate the Academy members overall so we have a broader perspective and views. And then we had, so our NHS project, one of our projects was that, and I have, I don't know if you guys saw this, but if you're able to drive, and I'm gonna pull up the text from Sage, who did this, so. The Denim Day project I did as part of National Honor Society consisted of a school-wide assembly and a community jean donation to raise awareness for sexual assault. I collected about 250 jeans and hung them on the fence along with some signs as a temporary art installation. I'm super proud of the impact the project made and the jeans we were able to donate to local crisis centers in town. So yeah, that was really cool. We got to see that, and then that happened during class, one of our class day activities where we're doing a senior barbecue, so we had lots of questions regarding that, so we definitely hit the mark on that. And then I did hand out a photo, the entrepreneurship. This is the business night. This is one of my friends, but I just walked in and they were selling Scentsies, and you can see probably his posters for his lawn company. So I just thought it was amazing. And then we had some people selling some creams and knitted blankets. So I love seeing students get interactive. So it seemed happy, so it made me happy. And so I really love that. And then our Unity Council also, by the help of the communications, updated or got our logo, which is Model C on that. We did a poll, so that's going to be our new face for Unity Council. We're going to try to integrate a more prominent association within the school. Yes, and then we also had an opportunity to be on NTV, so that was amazing for our students. And then Louder Than a Bomb Poetry Club, we have with Gear Up, which I'm very excited about, our literacy magazine, which I named Gold Ink. But we named it First Whispered Lines because the students who participated in this were freshmen. So there was their first poetry competition, and then us seniors. So we just thought, First Whispered Lines and Gold Ink really rolls off well. And then all the art you'll see mostly is all from students. So this is a student at Gish, and we love to keep it that way, interactive from all kind of projects. So yes. the Superintendent and Student Advisory Council had the opportunity to speak with student leadership clubs such as LGBTQSA. This group traveled to Wasmer as a request from the principal and leadership tomorrow. LGBTQSA stated that Grand Island Senior High is an affirming high school. Another student spoke about recycling in our school after moving from California and noticing a need. So student leadership is very strong and prominent, which I'm very excited and proud about. Next year's are class officers, which makes me sad. The list is class president is Shavante Harris, class vice president Emma McCoy, class secretary Dulce Montea, and then student board representative Zach Cloutier, which you guys are in good hands. And then our senior class day, which is tomorrow, when students walk into the building, they'll get a lei to finally leave the island. So we're sending them off with that. We'll have superlative awards for these students. Some categories are best dressed, most likely to get a misspelled tattoo. Yeah. Worst Parker, most likely to miss their own graduation. And then most likely to remind the teacher about homework. So excited about that. There will also be competitive dance battles, which very exciting. And then personally on the student outreach level, throughout my leadership position, I had the opportunity to have many discussions with students over anything they saw was some needed more conversation or more application, and here's my consensus. I like to say that I have a decent understanding in how the school system works and the officials who are making decisions for the students. Although some students may not understand, therefore I believe having more board members and admin visit classrooms and form connections with the students will better help understand both sides and help address questions ground level, which I have seen recently, which makes me happy because I remember being a student and seeing admin walk in and being scared, but then actually finding out they're not scary. So I think that would be really nice, and for students to just kind of understand that we work together. We're not opponents. And then another note is about the academies, which first academy model student here. The career pathway model has been very excellent for the majority of our graduating seniors. Although I like to share my opinion with others too. We need to continue to provide opportunities for students to individualize and personalize their coursework outside of the pathways when their interests may change or not necessarily fit a certain pathway. The pathway model may provide too much structure that unintentionally locks them into a pathway and limits their choice. For example, students may want to take more global electives that are not aligned with their specific pathway within the academy. The reason I mention this is because I believe entirely that all students graduating should be 100% college and career ready. And of course, that kind of leads into their own interpretation of that. Final notes. A year ago today, I interviewed for this position as a scared, nervous junior. And today I'm sitting here, I have learned a whole new world within the school and the community. I am proud to say that I have been in the GIPS district since the age of 4, and I will continue to wear my purple and be gold. What? Well, thank you. Well, I've had the opportunity to be board rep. I've had the pleasure to grow as a leader and be an individual to Grand Island. A few tears have been shed here, laughs, oohs, and ahs. I am grateful to have this opportunity. I learned leadership is more than just an action and thinking. It is being interactive and ground level, while being ground level, asking the hard questions. And I want to thank you for this opportunity and being great role models. I believe in this district and the students and teachers who work hard endlessly. I believe in the power of education, and I believe that we are here today because we are believers of the power of public schools. And then I kind of want to throw in a joke. When I got inducted, I made the joke about being here because they thought I was, as a preschooler, because they thought I was hard of hearing because I was so shy I would never speak up. So now being the board rep, but it's beautiful to see who's behind that every student, everyday success. It's really beautiful to see that so much people here have put so much thought and effort into my educational career, and it's been an amazing road, and I'm proud to say that I've learned and grown, and all of you guys here, I'm thankful for the opportunity, and your leadership skills goes more than beyond this room. Thank you.
get the board with Isabella and everything, can we do that? Or do we want to do that after?
Let's not lose this moment, Mitch, and then and then we will do the photo. Because I just want to say, you know, Isabella, from the first time you came in here and then how you were tonight, you have grown so much. I mean, you were always just this energetic, bright young woman, but you have really gained a confidence, because I know you were nervous for those reports every single month. I could feel it. And then you went to this, she went to the state conference, and she presented at the state conference, and she just kept pushing herself, even though it made you uncomfortable. I'm a big believer, if it makes you uncomfortable, you got to do it. If it scares you, you got to do it twice. So you've just really, really grown, and I'm so excited to see what you're going to do. And we'll just keep watching. Come back and visit, because you know how exciting these meetings are. So just come back anytime. Yeah. So we will miss you, but it's very bittersweet for us, because we get so fond of our board reps, but then we're always so excited to see what you're going to do next. So it's very bittersweet. So you will be missed. Dry your tears, Mrs. Juergens.
I'm such a fan of yours. Sorry, gosh, be cool. All right. I've learned a lot from you. I find you to be an incredibly inspirational young woman, and I am so excited for you to go into your own future and continue to make your own path. I think you're going to inspire a lot of people. And I'm proud of you. I'm so thankful that I got to know you.
Thank you, and I've had an amazing mentor
Yeah.
throughout. It really goes to show, like, everyone needs a person in their life to be their cheerleader, and thank you for that, Ms. Wiggins.
Oh, that's nice. Mrs. Hinkle?
So just wanted to ask, I think you've told us before, but remind us where you're going next. What's your next venture?
So I'm going to stay here for 2 years just to kind of, work like myself ground level, and I just want to make sure that I'm fine on a personal basis, that I know where all my eggs are in my basket before I can make a decision. But here and then UK to be a major in wildlife biology.
Awesome.
I'm
Well,
going somewhere to the coast.
awesome. Well, congratulations. And yes, we've really enjoyed you, and so thankful that you tried for this position, because we know it's not real exciting for kids, but we love it that you did. And I'm very happy that you've represented us well. I've loved the feedback that you've provided on things. We asked for the student perspective, and you gave that to us. So thank you very, very much.
Mr. Parsoness?
Ditto. It's great to see you grow, find your voice, and keep growing your voice and your family. Felicidades. Es parte del sueño y del trabajo que han hecho. Y el mantener a la familia junta y siguiendo el crecer en la educación y en los valores y en las oportunidades, siguen siendo ejemplo de la que las cosas sí son posibles. So thank you for your hard work as parents and family and continued support. Gracias.
Mitch, I think you can have your picture now.
Yeah, if we get the board to come out here with Isabella, let them get photos. No, you're fine. It's just me and my phone.
Excited.
I'm the older sister. No, I'm on Sunday anyway.
I actually went to Jish, and I've seen it grow so much since I left 12 years ago. So I feel really old, but yes.
All right, yeah, everyone.
Oh, get up there. Get up there. You're good.
All right, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Can I get one too?
Oh, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, now look at me.
You gotta count like you did.
Spanish?
9.17, Superintendent Report. Dr. Grover.
Well, we can never top the students' report, you know that. Congratulations again. So since we're kind of talking about Isabella, why don't I just start with graduation? It's going to be on Sunday, the 15th. The doors open at 1:00 p.m. And we will start the ceremony at 2:00. You can help us celebrate 518 graduating seniors. This is a very special year, being that it is the first year to graduate our students who have matriculated through all 4 years of the academies. And they have a lot of pomp and circumstance, I guess. They're gonna have a lot of hoopla at the graduation. So a lot of new things to help celebrate the students, and particularly their academies and all of their accolades. And so we're just excited for the graduation on Sunday. So of course, looking forward to having some board members there to pass out the diplomas, as well as we invite the public. We will be at the Heartland Event Center. I do think we have room for everyone, so we're excited about that. So just a couple of updates from me. Let's see here. I think we wanted to update just a little bit on staffing. It was interesting today. I had a patron, no appointment, but they came in to see me today. But I was kind of glad I had a few minutes just to chat with them. And they said, you know, I was talking to a friend of mine in another part of the state, and they are having the same problems with staffing. And I just want you to know it's not a GIPS thing. Are you telling people that it's not a GIPS thing? So I just want to say, you know, first and foremost that yes, across the education arena, I am going to give a little nudge to our newspaper and media outlets, because I do think that there is a story to be told to help people understand what education is facing as we talk about the future and how we go about being able to service our students. And so we've been following our numbers. Chris and I, we have a weekly check-in to kind of discuss where we are. You know, we are a district that we have 1,542 total employees. We have over 800 certified staff members. So if you think about that, I mean, we're a great place to work, right? Because we're looking for, started out looking for a little over 100 positions. So you think about that, right? 800, 100 people that we're looking for. And so right now, I would say that we're about 50-50 as just a rough number, but we still have total number of openings is around 60 openings. We have made a couple of contract offers this last week. Other districts are not letting people out of their contracts right now, and I can tell you I wouldn't let my people out of theirs either. So that's going to be harder than we've ever seen it before. So if you think about that, in 1 week's time, we were able to offer 2 contracts, and we're still waiting on the answer. So normally we like to have all of our positions filled by June 30th. So we're definitely at a point where we have to start thinking about a contingency plan. What we do not want is for our teachers to be overstressed and taxed the way that they were last year in regards to trying to cover classes, et cetera. So we do have a strategy meeting on next week. We have about 4 or 5 tactics that we're going to be looking at. So I just want to be transparent with the board. It is going to take a community effort. It's going to take us being innovative, thinking outside the box, maybe doing some things on a temporary basis to help us get through these very challenging times. And that's why it is critical for the community to understand how much of a role they play in helping us, whether it's through supporting our decisions, whether it's through helping people to want to come and live and be a part of the Grand Island community and the positive things that we have to offer. It's definitely going to be collective ownership. And so we look forward to, we are going to put our best foot forward. I know between all of us working as teams, we will have a solution, no doubt, but it probably will require some different thinking as we move forward. So with that being said, if you have any questions, I definitely will take those. And it was interesting, of course, we had our Insight Impact meeting with our community, and we had over 100 people attend that discussion, which was great. So it does tell me that people in the community, they want to know more, and they're trying to figure out the way that they can support. So I think we need to continue to engage our community in that light, and we will be working through the report, but not only the report of what we heard, but where are the opportunities to partner together for solutions. And so our charge there, we would like to be able to reengage the community within 30 days of that event as we move forward. I have completed all of my superintendent listening tours. Yes, I am proud of myself, and I do want to thank our staff members, Jennifer, Michelle, and Mitch. They've kind of taken turns to go out to all of the schools with me, and people have been very generous with their feedback, and it is making a difference in our future planning. So thank you to all the campuses for allowing me to come out and spend some time with you. I really did appreciate it. And I believe that that is going to conclude my report for tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Grover. Do you have a question, Bonnie?
Yeah, I'm chatty tonight. I just wanted to say, you know, we're a week away from school ending, correct? Like, it gets out next Friday. And I'm not sure that any of us thought at the beginning of the school year we would make it through the whole school year in class again. So 2 years, you know, we made it through. And so thank you to you and your staff and to the teachers and to everybody. I know there were some really tough times, but I'm just really grateful that we were able to accomplish that. So appreciate that very much.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Mrs. Juergens.
Just to piggyback on what Mrs. Hinkle just shared, I am always in admiration, Dr. Grover, of how invested you are. And I say it all the time. You show up in conversation after conversation. I will reach out to you with something that I think, I should probably know this. And you never say, Mrs. Juergens, why don't you know this? You just answer me kindly. And you show up in physically, you show up mentally, emotionally, and I see your investment in every conversation we have. Thank you so much for that dedication and the hours and the heartache that you have put into all that has happened in the last couple of years. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I cannot let that compliment go without extending it out to our greater team. I just do want to say that we have some great folks working on behalf of our students. And I have to say, we feel so supported by the Board of Education, challenged a lot of times as well. But we know at the end of the day, you're going to keep pushing until we do what's necessary. So thank you so much for that.
Okay, let's get on to the action items. 10.1, Assistant School Safety Coordinator Additional Staffing Request. Bless you.
You're just really excited about it, aren't you?
We're awake now. Are there any questions for the assistant security position?
Make a motion to approve the additional staffing request for an assistant school safety coordinator.
Mr. Barsonis, Mr. Holly, any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes. Thank you. (10.2) Proposed meal prices for Grand Island Public Schools for 2022-2023. Is Chris here?
She leave?
Oh, Dr. Schroeder, you want to come on down?
Are there any questions that I can answer for you about the proposal? Oh, I forgot to say howdy, folks, tonight. I'm a little off. I'm a little froggy. So howdy, folks. Are there any questions that I can answer for you regarding the information?
I make a motion to approve the Grand Island Public Schools 2022-2023 meal prices as presented.
Second.
Mr. Barsonis, Mr. Helinski, any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes. 10.3, ESSER 3 purchase for fine arts, visual, and elementary music. Dr. Lee.
Any questions about this?
Doesn't look like it.
I do. I I'm ready to make a motion if you're ready. Okay, great. I would like to make a motion to approve the funds requested for the listed items being used for the fine arts visual and elementary music equipment.
Second.
Who was that?
It was,
Okay.
it was a team effort.
Okay, Ms. Wolf and Mr. Helinski. Any discussion? Please vote. Oh, God, I was like, wait, am I supposed to do something?
Thank you.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Congratulations, that's exciting. 10.4, Edmentum renewal. Mr. Phillips.
Any questions?
I approve the renewal as presented.
Mr. Barsonis?
I make a motion to
Yes.
approve as presented.
Ms. Wolf? Any discussion? Please vote.
Thank you.
Motion passes. 10.5, Grand Island Senior High additions and renovations. Mr. Petch.
I did want to say thanks, Isabella, for kind of getting the mood back up for me after I had to read. I mean, she did well. Yeah, thank you.
10.5.
Make a motion to approve the bid from Perry Reed Construction for the Grand Island Senior High additions and renovations using the ESSER 3 funding.
Mr. Barsonis, and it's like you're throwing your voice. Mr. Helinski, any discussion? Please vote. Excellent. Motion passes. 10.6, Conical Elementary HVAC renovations. Mr. Petch.
I don't have any further
Okay.
things to add for Conical.
Oh. Are you, do you have a question, or are you going to make a motion? Make it.
Well, I was gonna.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the recommended bid from Mid-Plains Construction for Conical Elementary School HVAC renovations.
Mr. Helinski, Mr. Brown, any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes. 10.7, Gates Elementary addition and renovation.
I don't have anything.
I think you've said enough about this.
We still like you, Dan. It's okay.
Any motion? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Linsky.
I'd like to make a motion to approve tabling the Gates Elementary addition and renovation for the time being after reviewing the bids.
Second.
Mr. Helinski and Mr. Barsonis, any discussion? Okay, let's vote. Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Petch. 11.1, NSBA National Conference report out. So those of us that went to the conference, we're just going to say a few things about what we took home from the conference. So I always liked going to these conferences because it kind of just, I love being around like-minded people, people that are interested in public schools, people that are interested in students and what's best for students. I went to a lot of different sessions, but one was about how trauma was impacting learners and trauma from COVID and just trauma from home and just how it really affects their ability to learn. And I would say that was probably the one that had the most impact on me. Carlos, would you like to go?
A lot of the ones I went to had to do with either ensuring leadership, capacity, equity, how do you make it stick, as talked about. One of them was modeling civility in your school board. So I would say that 90% of the sessions that I went to had to do with governance, had to do with equity, had to do with conversation. And there's a lot of the work, you know, I'm still amazed at being in the middle of Nebraska, listening to other school boards and other administrators. We are ahead on many things, right? We are facing some of the same things the bigger schools are dealing with, smaller schools. So being out there, it was just a reassurance of, wow, there's a lot that's happened in the last couple of years. And had mental health, not only for Now, you mentioned COVID, the effects of COVID, regardless, I've said this before, people that believe it or not believe it, we're all going through some type of emotional drain, intellectual drain, employment drain. So how that affects communities, a lot of it, again, had to do with that. And I'll leave the last one for the podcasting for Erica, because I'm sure she'll mention it. But again, a great time to connect.
Mr. Hawley?
One of the most notable that I went to had to do with Cajon Public Schools in California, and how one day they had no refugees and the next day they had 1,100, and how they were not prepared for that, and the just the extent of what they did to develop the supports for all the students that need it, change the community involvement. They reported a statistic of 4 out of 10 parents are engaged in their school, with a national average of 2 out of 10 parents are engaged in schools typically. And so when you take just their normal culture and then that influx of a different culture into that and how they dealt with it, I just thought it was a really amazing story to listen to, and something we can all learn from.
Where was that again?
Cajon Public Schools in Cajon, California.
Great. Mr. Brown?
Mine would be better. So I apparently took the path of mental health, both with students and staff, because I almost every presentation I went to, there was some component of that. And there's so many good things to hear, really hard to hear, but lots of good things to hear. Sky Schools was one of them that presented and really had some good professional development for staff and for students, and really having to do with mental health and self-care. Some of the impacts of not hugging kids for a year, that they mentioned that, and I think that's a real thing. They also were warning against summer school about, we had a tough time with staff. Now, what about summer school? And so nationwide, they were just saying that could be a crisis of being able to staff up to even get summer school covered. So I thought that was interesting. It was interesting that one of the schools was talking about, I love public schools, not from Nebraska. And so I thought that was cool because that's a Nebraska thing. So I did sit on a couple of sessions with social workers because I have that's kind of a thing. And trauma, especially in the poverty areas, was really something that they talked about. Let's see. Building resilience with our students and with staff. All the little things that teachers can do, and all staff, I should say, and they said one positive interaction with a caring adult is what kids need. Just one. But the big part is the training part, and what we've went through really in the last 2 years has really been one of the bigger healthcare crises that we've had. And it's not what you think. It's more the mental side of things and that. Because these are my original notes too, so this is good stuff. One of the comments I picked up, it was on the last day, I thought it was kind of funny. Measuring seat time says we're probably measuring the wrong end of the students. And I just love that. So Dr. Dahl, that's for you. He's not here. I just, measuring and demonstrating their knowledge is what we should be doing, not just counting them in their seats. So I just thought that was good. I did sat through one on digital use, and I thought the guy was talking so fast I couldn't take enough notes, but he mentioned a couple of websites. One is futureready.org about being connected, and also everyoneon.org is another one that it's basically just about the digital world and making sure that everyone has access and whatnot. So I just thought that was interesting, but they did bring up data privacy, about the fact that there's 28 laws protecting students and student data. So it was just like, yep, here we are. So with that, it was a good conference, lots of things to choose from, but a lot of topics that, like I said, mental health was really part of what I saw throughout the whole time. So.
Ms. Wolf?
Thank you. I went to a variety of things because whenever we have the opportunity to go to a national conference, I try to experience as much as I can in the time that we have there. And one of the first sessions that I had the opportunity to go to was about McKinney-Vento families. And this goes along with the Education for Homeless Children and Youth programming. And there's some federal dollars out there available to help provide that educational experience for our homeless and near homeless youth. And a very small district in Illinois was doing some really neat things trying to shift homelessness to hopefulness. So when we're thinking about homelessness, it's not just the child, it's also the people raising the child or the children. And so they had kind of turned it back around, and there were some additional things in regards to privacy that they weren't forthcoming with, which is appropriate, but they were hiring those parents or those guardians within the school system first on a very temporary basis, and then if they made it through the temporary period and some of those requirements through the McKinney-Vento Act, then that parent or that guardian potentially had the opportunity to obtain full-time employment with the school district, whether that was staff, wherever they were going to be, and a parent was able to tell her story, and it was a great story on how this opportunity helped her, and not only helped her children, because being in the food service system, she got to see her kids too while she was there and create those positive connections to the school system. So I liked that one, obviously. I also went to one that Carlos and Lisa went to with DEI, and they also said they're going to be adding the letter B, so diversity, equity, inclusion, and then B for belonging. And just some interesting, they're presenters that I find entertaining each year that they're there, so I do enjoy learning from them. I also went to one that involved the Cajon district as well, but they were more focusing on inclusive innovation in their district. And a couple of things that I thought was very interesting. They have a flash mob every year, and they involve the entire school, and they do it as like a back to school kind of welcome to keep that energy high. For the staff and all staff members in regards to bringing the students, quote unquote, back from summer break. And then they utilize TED Talks as well for kids. And they have first graders doing TED Talk live. And just, it was amazing to they gave some snippets of some children that started at first grade, and maybe they started with some, speaking impediments, and then what they're doing now as 5th and 6th graders. So really innovative use of free material out in the world. I also went to one about how to deal with negative people and negativism, and they had 10 action steps for that. And not last or least, I have 2 more that I went to that I feel like are very important. One was also about mental health, but they were very, very focused on educating parents about situations that our teens are potentially going through. So the animative creator of Rugrats, yes, that one, put together some videos on YouTube, and so some situations. So for example, one of the ones they shared was a student came home, had a really bad day at school for whatever reason, and was going to make a really poor choice. And so the student went to go make the poor choice, thought better of it, but came home, and the single parent had that conversation with their child, modeling it like, hey, what is wrong? What can I do to help you? And so I thought it was super cool, and it was great animation as well. And last but not least, podcasting! So I was super pumped about this because this is another great way to engage our stakeholders and share information out. So that was why I was super pumped at the last board meeting when you brought that up, Isabella. And so I think one of the districts that talked about it was they started doing it during 2020 and COVID and getting information out. And so I'm hopeful that that is something that we as a district can potentially to look at in regards to having many different platforms in regards to getting information out to our stakeholders. And I will stop with that. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Just one other thing I wanted to mention was when I was at the conference, one of my school board friends that lives in another city texted me and said that the conference she was sitting in was bragging about Grand Island Public Schools. She was sitting in a science and reading session, and the speaker is bragging about GIPS, and the presenter said this is a district to watch. So we have a lot to be proud of. So. Foundation report.
All right, the foundation has awarded $511,533 in scholarships for the class of 2022. This represents 153 scholarships to 88 students. An ad noting all of the winners will be printed in the Independent in their upcoming graduation circular. The foundation will host a press conference announcing the totals of the 19th annual Added Up to Opportunity Staff and Board campaign on Tuesday, May 17th at 4:30 p.m. at Walnut Middle School. The foundation has released the nomination forms for the 2022 Teacher of the Year awards. Forms are available online only with a deadline of May 20th. The corporate sponsor of this program is First National Bank. The foundation has released the application for the Dr. Eugene Miller Legacy Scholarship. This program is designed as a scholarship for GIPS staff members who are pursuing a graduate degree. Applications are online and close on May 31st. The fund will support up to a $1,000 award annually. The foundation is doing one reprint of the Memorial Stadium donor wall panels. Donors must get their qualifying gifts in by May 31st to get on the donor wall or change categories on the donor wall. The new panels will be ordered this summer and installed in August. The foundation board will have the following business before them at their May 18th, 2022 meeting. A, close the COVID-19 emergency fund, and B, accept the final 2022 scholarship winners and awards. And that completes my GIPS Foundation report.
Thank you, Mrs. Juergens. NASB monthly update, you can get those on the email or you can go on the website. And 12, notification of upcoming board meetings. Our next meeting is Thursday, June 9th at 5:30. And 13 is adjournment. There we go. Have a good night. Stay dry.